Hey, Live All Good podcast listeners. It is another episode of Move the Needle. And since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, JR and I decided to take a deeper dive into components of good mental health. That discussion is coming up next. Stay tuned.
Our priority at Blue Monarch Communications is building your confidence as an effective presenter. Whether you're preparing for a formal presentation, a keynote address, an interview, or presenting an idea or concept to your team or your clients, we are here to ensure that you are poised to effectively communicate your content while engaging and connecting with your audience. Let our team help you shine.
Hey folks, this is Lee Grigsby here, health and life coach and founder of Live All Good Coaching. I'll be on the air with Podcast Business News Network talking about the various things around health and wellness and mental health. Also talking about how mindset is critical to achieving the goals that you set for yourself. You can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com, or you can go to my website liveallgood.com and fill out the contact form and reach me there. Once again, that's liveallgood.com. Go to the About section, fill out the contact form, or you can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com. Hey folks, welcome back from the break. This is another monthly episode of Move the Needle. And guess what, folks? We have a shock today. Well, not really a shock, more of a surprise. Our co-host is back. He is healthy. He's on the mend. J.R. Ford, how are you doing, sir?
I am back from the dead. I have come back.
I'm not sure you died, but
no, I don't know. It's pretty close now.
Well,
Okay.
no, we did love Dakota filling in for you. He was awesome.
I greatly appreciate and very thankful for Dakota.
And we renewed his contract. So no, I'm kidding.
Oh, this is my finale. Okay, got it.
I didn't say that pre-show. Sorry. No, I'm kidding.
Just watch out for my rant on social media.
Nice. All right. Well, what do they say? If you're not being hated on, you're not doing enough or something like that. So
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Great. No, folks, we're happy to have JR back. Well, on our last month's episode, we did an interview with Gabby Abdel-Gadir. As you had read her book, we had talked to her, but you couldn't make the episode. Yep. So everyone sent their well wishes, and we're glad to have you back on this month for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Well, it is interesting that this is the episode for May, and it just so happens to coincide with Mental Health Awareness Month. I think that's a fairly important topic to talk about these days. What do you think?
Yeah. I was, chatting with you earlier, and I actually hadn't put two and two together on what I was promoting, for the episode, and the fact that this month just happened to be Mental Health Awareness Month, and the fact that it took one of my coworkers in Slack to say, "Hey, you're gonna do this great mental health awareness challenge." And I was, thinking like, "What? Oh!" But it didn't dawn on me,
sure.
half an hour, an hour or so ago about, what the topic could be. But it kind of all came together because I felt that kind of coming out of the winter time, getting through 2 years of COVID, living through a pandemic, long-term, traumatic, stress on everybody. And I thought that maybe we should just talk about, how the spring could be a refresh for us, kind
Absolutely.
of, collectively. So yeah, I think that kind of happened naturally. And I'm happy to talk about that. And I know you got some great information as well to share. So yeah, let's get into it.
Cool, man. Well, and I will tell you that I don't believe in coincidence, right? Things happen, whether you classify them as good or bad, or however you want to classify it, but I don't believe in coincidence. So
right,
it is by no coincidence when we were talking earlier about the episode that's what you brought up, and here we are. So cool. Well, you know what? I want to this is from an article from Pillars of Wellness. Okay. I was just doing some random research on different areas of mental health, wellness, and mental wellness, right? What different experts have to say. And this article was really good. It breaks it down in a way that's understandable, right? It's not all of the like the professionals have a certain jargon, right, for mental health. It doesn't really use those
it's terms. Not super academic.
No, absolutely not. But you know what? Before we get it, so the article is the 7 components of good mental health, right? That's the article. And folks, I will post it in the show notes when we for the episode. But before we get into the 7 components, there's a great kind of I don't know if it's a quote, but it's from the article, and it's a paragraph that's talking about cognitive behavioral therapy with anxiety and depression, that kind of thing. But I wanted to read this, and it's just an excerpt from this paragraph. Okay. Our mental state of mind takes its toll on our physical health, our emotional well-being, and even our intellectual health as we begin to experience cracks in the foundation that bring lasting consequences. I was like, wow, that it. So while some people can, when we talk about mental health and mental wellness, it really is all encompassing, right? It's not just emotions, or it's not just what you think. Like each part is integral to the other part.
Absolutely. And it definitely, mental instability has cascading effects on you might just like you just said, you might think of it as as a mental ailment, but it can easily transfer, or even kind of
manifest,
exemplify itself in something physical, such as I think we know the common things that we can probably think of are
cancer. That's one of them.
Isolating yourself, which is we've been in this for 2 years. Isolating.
Sorry, I went the wrong direction. I thought you were saying how it manifests itself, but yes.
Absolutely. So it can manifest itself. I was using another word. I was looking for manifest, but you got it. But it manifests itself. You can see it. You can see it in either you're isolating yourself, or you're not communicating in a way that you feel that you should be, or you don't want to communicate at all. So those are just some of the things that I think about when you talk about that.
Okay. And so I know that folks that may come across like, wow, there's no hope. But hold on because there is another quote, not quite a quote, but another excerpt from another paragraph before we get to the components that I do want to share as well. And I think this is important to share because it goes to the individual. Okay. So this is a quote from Dr. Stephanie Baker, who has over 25 years of experience in mental health therapy. Okay.
Yep.
She says that 80% of your recovery must come from your commitment and willingness to get better. Okay.
Yep.
So let's just kind of break that down. Yeah, let's break that down for a little bit before we get into the components. To me, that means if you start to recognize any type of retreat, or things just feel different for you, or if you notice patterns that are not serving you in a productive way, physically, emotionally, or if someone points it out to you because you may not be aware of it, right?
Right. Yep.
Well, you have a choice. You have a choice to commit and want to change or not. And so understand that if you make the choice that you don't want to get better, that you want to continue in the same vein, think the information and confirmation of situations, of people, of communicating, it's going to all confirm with you feeling worse. Okay.
Yeah.
And it really is like this superpower of choice. That's what it 80% of it, right? So again, you're gonna hear these components in in a second. We'll get to it. But I really just want to break that down. You have a part to play in your mental well-being. You do. So there's always hope, folks. There's always hope.
Yep.
So everybody's like, all right, Lee, well, shut up and get to the components. Okay. I will get to the components. Well, one of the first components of good mental health is in-person therapy. So I understand while we are still taking necessary precautions and have protocols in place during this pandemic.
Yeah.
I think 2 years ago, there was a huge fear of what was going on. Might still be fear of it, but maybe not a huge fear right now.
Right.
A year ago, vaccines were developed, whatever you believe about that. But now I think we're at a point with there are certain protocols that you can take, certain procedures, practices, whether you believe in vaccines or not, whether you believe in masks or not. Okay. There are certain things that you can do to make in-person therapy a thing.
Right.
Yeah. As a health and life coach, and I've definitely done remote work with clients. I can speak to, like, I won't speak personally, but I can speak to the difference in remote work and in-person work.
Yeah.
While I believe that the remote work is definitely doable and just as effective.
Yeah.
There's a difference when I've been in person, and at the moment that I have a client that needs a hug, I can give them a hug.
Right. Yeah.
There's that difference. I can't hug someone remotely. Yeah. I can try, but it's not quite the same.
Right. Yeah. You don't have enough adjectives or, verbs to equate to that, that in-person connection that you get. We're
absolutely,
first and foremost, we're human beings, and we absolutely are social. Over the past 2 years, I have taken part in virtual, therapy. It became a bridge to get to where we are now. So it became a temporary solution, and I think it also, it at least, I think in these past 2 years with virtual, and I'm not making, the big case that we all need to do, virtual, therapy.
Sure.
For the past 2 years, you can also look at it in terms of there's much more awareness of mental health, mental health issues, because it's been, covered, in, a lot of social media and a lot of influencers, and even on your traditional media outlets. They're always talking about mental health nowadays, that I can, I listen to a lot of other podcasts, but this one's number one, by the way, I'm just saying.
Love it.
Those other ones are a distant second. But the commercials now, they're commercials about mental health, and
Very
about
true.
connecting virtually. So I think of it as we went into this traumatic event, for the past 2 years.
Sure.
And that helped to, I guess, avail the way that we could possibly evolve therapy mechanisms, where it was probably, it was probably a small subset of therapists across the country. I mean, I'm talking thousands, or something like that, but they could tap into this mechanism now that was trusted, looked as, fairly trustworthy. And it gave people who had an internet connection the opportunity to connect with the therapist, where they probably might not have access to adequate healthcare where they are. So I think of it as
traditional ways were not available.
Think of it as a great a great opportunity for mental health to get a lot more awareness.
Agreed 100%, man.
Yeah.
And again,
and I go back now. I do in person. I went back, in person, but that it created that bridge for me. So sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, not at all. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I now coach in person too, but without the bridge that you talk about, right?
Yeah.
Like the reach would not have been the same, right?
Yeah.
The amount of connection to understand that you're not alone would not have been the same,
right?
I mean, there's been apps developed, like if you have not even now internet connection, if you have a cell phone, well, a smartphone, I should say, because if you don't have a smartphone, it might be difficult, but
it might be a little bit more difficult,
but you could probably dial in, so it's possible,
Yep.
Man, no, that's I love your insight, man. I appreciate that. This second component is, and I think this kind of ties in obviously to what we're just talking about with in-person therapy, right?
Yeah.
The second component is community.
Yep.
And so literally in this article, and I'm gonna read this section here, it's almost like you wrote the article, JR. It says, treating mental illness in 2021 may look different from years past. But that is no excuse to isolate yourself and wallow in your own unique set of issues.
There you go.
that is literally, so that's
I might have put that as the number one search result. Sorry about that. My keywords paid off there.
but I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? That was So yes, there's now a different approach. While there's more awareness, it's more mainstream. While the stigma might still be attached to mental illness and mental health and self-care, those kind of things,
right?
It's definitely more accepted because we all have experienced it. It's a global event,
right?
There's no corner that has not experienced something from it.
It hit everybody, these past 2 years have been cataclysmic for everybody, and that it has impacted everyone in every corner of the world in some form or fashion, and we can all empathize with everyone else.
Well, and what I can definitely speak to the importance of community. Again, we're talking about, because one of the most important aspects was removed from our lives of in person for some time. I'm trying to now think of how many communities I actually have.
Right. Yeah.
I can literally count on both hands the different communities I'm part of that
awesome.
I interact with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But some of them can be related, but they're all for different needs for me, because there's all some of the communities have same people mixed in a few of them, know, but like that is I can see why this is an important part of good mental health.
Yeah.
Because it keeps you from being isolated.
Right.
Because what I can tell you too is that in these communities, at some point, if someone hasn't heard from me, they'll send a message. Hey, just checking in on you.
Yep.
That simple,
Yeah.
And then it's like you realize, oh wow, I got caught up in my own day-to-day that I hadn't really checked in or hadn't said this, said that. And so it's nice to know that your absence is noticed.
Right.
And there's no judgment for it, but it's like, hey, we're just making sure everything's good. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You hit it right on the nose.
Definitely community. I can definitely see that. Okay, so I think I contributed to this article too. in the community section in the breakdown, I will read this sentence here.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? No, I have to go back a little bit. So I'll read most of it. It says, surround yourself with like-minded people, those who wish to become healthier and happier, and be uplifted by conversations, in-person meetings, virtual care services, and exchanges with your circle of support. In doing so, you'll realize that this journey is not a solo trip, and that you have people around you to improve the quality of your life.
There you go.
I should have just read the article instead of giving my own thing. but yeah, no, like,
we need, the listeners deserve our commentary and insight. That's why they're here.
Absolutely. That's our story, and we're sticking to it, folks. Yes.
Yeah.
You are here. No, but community is big. So the third component that people might not, I'm gonna marry the third and fourth components. Okay. Because I would say that these two components might be things that people don't think are important to good mental health. Okay. So we've talked about in-person therapy. We've talked about community. The third component is physical health. Okay. So before we can share that, some of our listeners might say, well, Lee, JR, what are you talking about? Like, what does my physical health have to do with my mental health? Right. And that's legit. I can see that.
Yeah.
You want to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, I can go first.
Sure.
So, some people can, have the ability to compartmentalize, which is basically you are segmenting off feelings and thoughts and can process it in a way that you wouldn't typically think, that a person would do. For us, it's, for me, it is, basically me, having the ability to internalize, that, and, that is a way that some people are able to do that, but not, there are a fair amount of people who don't have that ability, and it's hard for them to navigate through an event, a 2-year event.
Or piggybacking off of that, if you internalize it, where does it go after that?
Right. It manifests. We were talking about that earlier. It manifests totally. Somewhere else. Totally. It manifests into you not going out, not being social, not connecting. Mm-hmm. It transfers. And so when you talk about exercise, when you talk about physical wellness, one of those key indicators may be that you stop working out. You might reduce the amount of time that you go, or you reduce the time that you're there so that you can, go and, not do something. So those are indicators that I would
on the couch.
Or you go and sleep, take a nap. Yeah. It's not the time, I love a good nap, but it's something that I've kind of come to take, to heart is it happens consistently and persistently where you see these patterns happen that doesn't fully explain it, but it gives you clues into what may be happening
and what to look for. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what to look for.
Yeah. And I will definitely, I'll definitely share this as well. Right. I realized maybe, 6 months ago, no, 7 months ago, obviously, again, we have been constrained from certain physical activities. And I realized for those of you who know I'm a health and a life coach, this is not going to be news to you, right? But I realized that the gym is a huge part of my physical wellness.
Yep.
But I didn't realize how big it was for my mental wellness, right? So a quick health lesson here, you guys. When you have or perform physical activity, it releases those chemicals called endorphins. And the endorphins are what help you to feel good, right? There are other things that release endorphins as well, but we won't get into that whole health lesson.
Yep.
And so again, 6, 7, even 8 months ago, I realized that, wow, it's not even about how I look or feel physically. It's that I can't flush out the mental capacity that's weighing me down without this physical activity. Like, yes, running, biking, and those who have been able to work out at home or have the space to work out freely at home.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad you have that. I realized the setting of the gym is what I needed mentally. And that was a big deal when I admitted that. I did not realize how big a deal that was. So yeah, like that's home for me. That is where I need to be to make sure I'm on the level of mental health where I need to be.
Right. And, I was going to bring up a point earlier about, we talked about it was having the ability to make the change or I think that what you just pointed out was acknowledgement of, having the awareness of the problem. If people don't have that self-awareness where they don't realize that, they are in a negative situation or in a negative mindset, and hopefully they have people around them that, that are able
that
to
their community, can help point it out. Component 2, you guys.
But
component 2, community.
Yeah. But that first piece, I think the first step is that self-awareness and acknowledgement. Even if someone from the outside of, a third person
helps you,
would give you that perspective. It's about acknowledgement of this problem, this situation, and then talk about how can I fix it? How can I get it to,
what are the
how
steps?
Can I work out this solution? Yeah.
Because like to be fair, the gym, right, is not for everybody, but like you said, the solution, what is the solution for your physical activity needs.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I track you. I track you. When you jog and you go, you go cycling. So I see where you're going. I know the route. So
you're part of my community. So
I know the tree canopy that you see in the wilderness, along with the urban, landscape, around the city. I can see it's a beautiful draw. I used to live across the street from you, so I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been on a run lately, so
yeah.
Did somebody steal my phone, and who have you been tracking? No, I'm kidding. Those are jokes, folks. No one stole my phone. That's all good.
Damn raccoons and foxes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but to piggyback off of component 3, which was physical health, this component, even in reading the list, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think this would be that big of a deal, but it is. So component number 4 is intellectual health. Okay. Yeah. And so they describe it here as exercising your mind and committing to being a lifelong learner is a valuable part of your mental health process. Okay. So my wife is a huge reader. Yeah. And actually so is my daughter. So I think that's a good aspect of mental health for them, right? Continually absorbing books. Yeah. And not just fiction. Yeah. Yeah. It keeps the synapses firing. I have to say that that is probably one of the weaker points of my mental health. Yeah. Because I have in all the listeners they're gonna vilify me for this. I'm kidding. They might, I don't know. I think I have about 6 books, maybe 7 that I'm currently reading.
I'm sorry. What? Wait, what?
Well, so see, that's the problem. Like I do have like 6 books that I'm reading.
Right.
But I read a little bit of them each different days.
Yeah,
so
that totally makes sense. Yeah.
I kind of have a bad habit of not finishing books though. That's the part I didn't want to admit. But
that you just have to reframe it. You are currently reading what you just said. You're reading 7 to 55 books right now.
Very true.
So there you go.
But I will, like, the difference this time is that because each one of them is different, I will finish them, actually. I will finish all of them. So in a year's time, when we're doing another mental health reset on Move the Needle, I will check in with the books I have finished.
All right.
You guys hold me to it. Hold me to it.
May the 4th be with you.
Got it in there. You did. But yeah, so I think that's why I wanted to tie those two together, because I wanted to make sure our listeners understood that physical and intellectual health are parts of good mental health,
Yep.
And people may not think of them in those. I know I was one of them who didn't think about intellectual health. Right. It's fun. I want to share a quick story, and then why don't we jump to break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the other 3 components of good mental health.
Sounds good.
But before we go to break, so I'm talking about communities, right? One of the communities I'm part of, it's like a networking mastermind, personal growth community.
Yep.
The founder of it literally said that, right? He's like, I am committed to being a lifelong learner. And one of his first I guess I'm plugging what he does without plugging it, right? But before he started this group that I'm part of now, one of his first groups was called the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf. So, man, every time I'm on a meeting with this guy, every time I've done a podcast with him, by the way, if you check out some of the former Spotlight series that I've done, Jose Escobar is the guy.
All right.
But every time I'm in a meeting with him, or on a call, it's amazing because he has in his office, it's not a virtual background like some of us have.
Yeah.
It is his office, and he's buried in books. I mean, buried,
Yeah.
You cannot see the top shelf.
The wall is real. The bookshelf is real.
It is not a virtual background at all.
Leather-bound books.
So I'm gonna have to go visit him someday just to see his personal library, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
But again, so we're talking these components: community, therapy, in-person therapy, physical health, intellectual health. Like, I can see why they all fit together for that.
Yeah. They all run hand in hand.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So yeah, I want to mention something else before we go to break. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure our listeners are understanding that this is not some rigid formula we're talking about. Okay. These are all general suggestions for everybody. Again, I mentioned my wife and daughter are readers, right? So maybe, well, we're a pretty physical, active family.
Yeah. Yep.
But, learning how to be part of different communities, or some of the other components we'll talk about.
Yeah.
These are not rigid things, right? We're not telling you if you have none of these, then your mental health is going to suffer. No, it looks different for everybody. Maybe your community is, having a few good friends, not 10, 12 different communities like I'm in.
Yeah.
It looks different for everybody, but just wanted to point that out, that this is not some rigid formula. This is just
great point.
A kind of a guideline to help you understand what good mental health looks like. All right.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll do a quick recap of the first 4 components of good mental health. And then we'll cover and discuss the other 3. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, this is Lee Grigsby here, health and life coach and founder of Live All Good Coaching. I'll be on the air with Podcast Business News Network, talking about the various things around health and wellness and mental health. Also talking about how mindset is critical to achieving the goals that you set for yourself. You can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, liveallgood.com, and fill out the contact form and reach me there. Once again, that's liveallgood.com. Go to the About section, fill out the contact form, or you can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com.
Our priority at Blue Monarch Communications is building your confidence as an effective presenter. Whether you're preparing for a formal presentation, a keynote address, an interview, or presenting an idea or concept to your team or your clients, we are here to ensure that you are poised to effectively communicate your content while engaging and connecting with your audience. Let our team help you shine.
Hey folks, welcome back from the break. Hope you have enjoyed so far. Hearing about JR and I really kind of set the table for you for mental health, as this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And here on Move the Needle, like we care about many aspects of social well-being, and mental health is definitely one of them right now, for sure. So, JR, we'll do a quick recap of the first 4 components that we covered from this article from Pillars of Wellness. The first component is in-person therapy. Second component is community. The third component is physical health. And the fourth component is intellectual health. All right.
Yep.
So just to go off the beaten path a bit here. Oh boy, that's a teaser. Would you like to guess the fifth
Did you hear the
component?
pregnant pause?
Right? That's,
yeah.
That you like that production technique. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Would you like to guess what the fifth component is, sir?
Oh boy.
I know I put you on the spot. I know.
No. I mean, you think about the first four and your mind's kind of scrambling about, all right, what are the first four? And now, we're at the back half of of this list. And gosh, we covered what I thought were already two probably key points, which were the mental and the physical.
Sure. Absolutely.
What is the fifth?
No guesses? Okay, that's fair.
No,
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
You actually touched on it in the first segment. You actually touched on it.
All right.
So the fifth component is environmental health. Yeah. Like when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
now,
totally.
I think what people think about with environmental health is, I have to get out in nature, right?
Right.
So yes, that is a key component of environmental health. But I would like to add that that's not the only factor for environmental health, right?
Yeah.
I think environmental health is, if you're in the city, like I am, do you live in a standalone house? Do you live in a row house? Do you live in an apartment building? Right?
Yeah.
Are there green spaces? Well, so also for being in the suburbs, right?
Right.
What is the walkability in your neighborhood? Do you have to drive everywhere? Because that then tends to get into your physical health.
Right.
But then that gets to the stresses because of traffic.
Right.
That starts to
different
tie
stresses.
into many things.
I would say different stresses. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I just want people to be aware of there are many different aspects of environmental health, not just getting out into nature. Like I don't have to go on some retreat to experience nature, right?
Right.
Environmental or even environmental health in this aspect. Gosh, I hope no one is in a toxic workplace.
Yeah.
But that environment has something to do with your mental health.
Absolutely.
Your work environment,
you can't divorce them from the two.
Right. No, you can't. That is clearly married together. Maybe your family environment is not conducive to good mental health,
right?
But you're not aware of it, right? You talked about awareness in the first segment. So the first thing is to start to pinpoint and have awareness of, wait a minute, where on this map, on this spectrum of components, what things can we, or do I excel at, or am I doing good in? Where can I improve?
Right. Yeah. And I just want to also point out that it's no one's fault, if you don't have the awareness. It's just that people have blind spots. You don't know everything. You're not aware of everything. And that's why that community is so important.
Absolutely. Spoken like a coach, sir. Spoken like a coach. You must know a really good one. You must know a really good coach.
The best.
Well, I'd love
I can give you his name. I can give you his name.
I'd love to meet him. I'd love to meet him.
Okay.
So I want to. There's a great part here in the environmental health. I just want to point this out, where it talks about literally the things we were talking about, right? So doing what you can to remove the aspects of your life that are stressing you out.
Yeah.
And again, I stress doing what you can, because you cannot control everything.
Right.
But it talks about relationships, living conditions, social situations, and physical health issues. So those things help create the environment that you're in different areas of your life.
Right.
So
yeah,
really understanding those things.
Those are big contributors to
absolutely
that feed into your overall health.
Absolutely.
Like we were saying earlier, it's not divorced. These are all contributing to your overall health.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Component number 6, I think, is probably an often overlooked component of good mental health.
Okay.
So I'll set it up like this. A lot of times maybe not in these times coming out of the pandemic, I haven't seen much of it, where we don't care how we affect other people.
Yeah.
Another episode for another day.
I know.
But what I will say is sometimes we go too far in trying to help or please other people.
Yeah.
And we lose what works for ourselves. Yeah. So component number 6 of good mental health is boundaries. Boundaries. Now, some people, I want to make sure we're clear about boundaries, right? Boundaries. Well, let me read what they say here. I will share from the article. It's impossible to fulfill all of life's obligations and take care of yourself as well. Let me read that again. It is impossible to fulfill all of life's obligations and take care of yourself as well. Setting boundaries and learning to say no to those things that are not essential will allow you to carve out time for safeguarding your mental health. Now, that's not all it says, but that was an important part to read.
Oh, yeah.
And I really want to drive this point home that there is a way to recognize or set a boundary without being aggressive. But if people still don't respect the boundary that's set, then maybe you have to be aggressive in that boundary.
Yeah.
So not everybody gets access to your phone number, or, you're not accessible to everybody 24/7.
Right.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Say something.
Yeah. No, yeah. You were definitely hitting on the right points. I was also going to add that being selfless does not give you, or for me, this is how I look at things. Being selfless does not equate to the value that I put upon myself. Having those boundaries and limits for me definitely helps to give me some balance and some guide, some boundaries, but some guardrails.
Sure.
Pun intended. Guardrails. I look at them as a way for me to kind of center back to myself, and that was one of the things I thought about, over this spring, is coming back to myself versus, continuing to kind of repeat the pattern of, what has, brought me down, having the awareness. Again, having the awareness is number one. You got to have the awareness. And again, it's no one's fault. It's not your fault if you don't have it, but that intellectual piece is absolutely vital.
The key in here, I'm going to piggyback off of what you're saying, because this I love it. This is perfect. So 2 things, and folks have heard me say this a lot, whether it's been on Move the Needle, other podcasts, videos, coaching. It's much like the being on an airplane, an oxygen mask, right?
Yeah.
You cannot help others if you don't help yourself first.
Right.
So you can take all the time putting everyone else's oxygen mask on, yet you'll run out of oxygen first.
Yeah.
If you put your mask on first, you will have better ability to help everyone else. That's not a well, it is a selfish thing.
Yeah.
And I want to add that we've been conditioned to think that selfish is bad, right?
Right.
Boy, I could see going down a rabbit hole here, and I'll try not to.
No, go for it.
Selfish is not a bad term, and I want to operate outside of the constructs of good and bad or right and wrong. Things just are. Yep. We've been conditioned this way. So selfish is a good thing because you're taking care of you. Being self-centered, right?
Yeah.
That means you are putting yourself above someone and putting them down in order to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's the no-no. You don't want to put someone else down to take care of yourself.
Right.
The selfish part is setting a healthy boundary so that your tank is full to help others.
Right.
That's the piece of boundaries we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? And I think we get that confused a lot because, again, here it talks about saying no. Saying no is good to those things that are not essential, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you got to use some discernment, if you will. You got to think, okay, if JR calls me in the middle of the week and says, hey, you know, can you, or sends me a text and says, hey, man, can you call me when you get a second? Right.
Right.
Well, that might not be a typical pattern. So I'm going to call because he reached out and said, hey, can you call me when you, it's not like we're recording a podcast. We're not just checking in monthly or something like that. This is a different pattern. Okay. I wanted to piggyback on one more thing you said too, with the awareness. And I love how you talked about not repeating the pattern that brought you down.
Yeah.
That's what we like, or I'd like to call it my coaching. You want to disrupt the pattern that you're in now. Right.
Yeah.
So whatever that shock to your system is to disrupt that pattern, that's how you literally, this is a physiological thing. The more you disrupt the pattern, in the neurons in your brain find a different path to the productive thinking parts in your brain.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite say that scientifically, but it is, there is science to it.
I caught what you were throwing.
Disrupting the pattern. Appreciate it. You got a big love. Got a big love. You caught that. So yeah, man, like boundaries. I know we went off on a tangent down a rabbit hole, but
it's a great point, you know.
Yeah. There is a way to really set healthy boundaries for sure. It was a great segue because it leads us into component number 7.
Yeah.
So component number 7 of good mental health is self-care. So that is a buzzword that has been thrown about, especially over the last 2 years. How's your self-care? How's your self-care doing?
Right.
Are you doing self-care? What do you do for self-care?
Yeah.
You know, so I know we've heard it. I know we've heard it.
Yeah.
But those are the things that, and I'm sure it kind of says this in the article, those are the things that feed your soul. Right? Like all the books that are titled, Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? There's a series of that. What are the things that make your soul feel good? What are the things that bring you joy? You know, that's what self-care is about. And there is a difference with productive. Well, no, I won't call it productive self-care.
Yeah.
I will call it positive self-care.
Yeah.
Or negative self-care. And so our listeners might be like, well, what do you mean? Right? How can self-care be negative?
Yeah.
So let me explain it this way. If you are engaging in activities that provide a temporary nourishment of your soul, such as binge drinking, or smoking. I'm not talking about, for your health, but I'm not talking about cigarettes either. But if you're smoking weed or something else, don't know,
right.
or even the recreational kind of drugs.
Yeah.
I'm not judging you for that. That's something that you do. Okay.
Right.
But my question then becomes, how well is that self-care? How long lasting is that practice for you?
Right.
And does it serve you in the long term for actually making you feel better? Or are the things that you were trying to escape still there when you come down from that temporary fulfillment?
Yeah. And I could probably look at it. I mean, I don't want to say it's like coping mechanisms, because
that's exactly what it is.
But everyone has coping mechanisms, whether it's
so are the coping mechanisms, are they serving you, or are they taking away from you?
Are they harming you?
Correct.
In a either mental or physiological way.
Sure.
That's a great point. I mean, the thing that I kind of think about is, these short-term solutions are what they are. They are not long-term. They don't have, they aren't something that is built on structure and process. These are, whether it's illicit or whether it's, even medication, medication wears off.
Prescription medication. Well, and that's the point.
In your long-term navigation with your mental wellness is the key.
Completely. So, and you called it what it is. You are absolutely right, JR. We all have coping mechanisms. There's an epidemic that's not talked about in a way of it being an epidemic, but eating, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about eating disorders, right?
Right.
And I'm not even talking about folks who are I don't want to call it obviously obese, but to the eye, right? By medical standards, I will tell you, based on my BMI, I am probably obese. Okay. No, everybody would be like, what? No way, you're not obese. Okay. But the point is, if with food and your relationship with food, and this is the health coach coming out of me, but your relationship with food, that can either be something that serves you, right? By trying to have a consistently better diet, and diet is the food you eat, or when you binge eat on processed foods, on sweets, on fast food. It's the same thing about, like we were talking about drugs, whether it's prescription or recreational illicit drug. It gives you that temporary numb feeling of
temporary
satisfaction. But how does it serve you for your long-term wellness? And so we're not judging you for doing those things. We're not judging you if that is what you choose to do, but understand your choice, because once you understand it, you can then choose to change it if you want.
And it goes back to awareness and having the ability to invoke that change. That's the other part that you were talking about earlier. Having the ability to either change your environment, change your eating habits, change something that can bring you into a positive mindset or into a new positive environment. That's the other part is the action.
Is the thought process that starts with it. I want to give an example before we go. There's, I got to bring this social aspect into it a bit. There are clearly food deserts. We have seen clearly now there are food deserts in different communities in the US. Okay. While it is more challenging and difficult to have access to higher quality foods in these food deserts, all right? think of this. You can still make a choice when you go to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven sells tons of sodas, chips, sweet snacks, because I buy them. They sell a ton of them.
Yeah.
But you know what else they sell? Bananas, oranges, apples.
Yep.
So it's a thought process. They also sell plenty. They have a whole cooler full of water.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about disrupting your old patterns, I want to read this thing again from the article. 80% of your recovery must come from your commitment and willingness to get better.
Yeah.
So while you cannot do it alone, the choice really is up to you.
Right.
It really is. Yeah. So I'll do a quick recap and then I'll ask you if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah.
But a quick recap of the 7 components of good mental health are: 1, in-person therapy; 2 is community; 3, physical health; 4 is intellectual health; 5, environmental health; 6 is boundaries; and 7 is self-care. So, JR, man, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with about mental health?
Yeah. Mental health and the obstacles that you may face, they may be temporary, they may be permanent for a certain time, but know that there's always a possibility that things may change, even if you don't think that they are. Even that glimmer of hope that you may have or may not have, just know that there's going to be hopefully a time when there will be some change. Looking through those seven practices and kind of areas that you just highlighted, kind of identifies that these things aren't disconnected. And guess what's at the center of all this? You.
Yep.
It's all about you. It is all about you. You talk about self-care, talk about being selfish. It is all about you. So don't think that other people are valued more than you. Trust me. Leave that for paparazzi and all the other
good old social media.
Yeah, but I'm joking. But we all have issues that may seem different, but when you distill them down, they're pretty similar. They're pretty similar in certain ways. So I would say give yourself some grace. Look at the show notes. It's a great read. Just looking at them in a few key areas, I think is a great start. So yeah, just give yourself some grace and look for the spring as a good marker to refresh yourself.
Love it, man. A good refresh. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to add this before we go, is that if anyone is listening to this episode, I want you to understand that you're not alone. You may not have community. You may not have an understanding of any of these 7 components that we talked about. If you do not, I want you to feel free to reach out to us on this podcast. I want you to feel free to send a message, whether it's through social media. There is always a link to send us a voice message, because you are not alone. And even like JR said, you might feel like it, but at the end of the day, just like all 7 components of these are related, we are all connected as humans and we're not alone. So if you feel that, please, please, please feel free to reach out to us here on this podcast and we will find a way to help you work on your mental health. Well, you guys, it has been another great episode of Move the Needle. We appreciate your time being here with us. We love being here with you. You can find us on all the major platforms: Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, some other platforms as well. And we look forward to coming for another episode next month of Move the Needle. Until next time, we'll talk to you then.